You're a fierce critic of certainly the previous administration in Mexico. You're the founder of your own Freedom University, and would like to talk about all of this in the next few minutes. We've got two new administrations, one in Mexico, one in America, and we'll get to their relationship in a moment. But first, how do you think Claudia Sheinbaum's government has been doing so far? Any better than AMLO?
Hard to tell. It's been a couple of months, and she's certainly facing a very challenging situation with this Trump threats. We have been operating and living under the free trade agreement for 35-something years, and the threat or the idea of a change in those operating rules will represent a huge challenge for Mexico. So considering that, I think she's doing pretty good. She's trying to appease Mr. Trump's demands, that the border be controlled and that the flow of drugs be controlled. So I think she's trying hard, but it's a difficult position, very difficult.
What's the one thing that she could do to make Mexico a better place?
Well, how about the rule of law and security and justice for everyday people,
Right. I was going to say resigning is not the right answer, but so we've talked about Trump and his various threats, and there's tariffs, there's the terrorist designation for the drug cartels, obviously there's immigration, drugs writ large. What do you think is the end game going to be of this brinkmanship? There's obviously tariffs potentially in March.
Because Mr. Trump is definitely a tariff man. He views America as a world on itself. America doesn't need anybody. And that's his view, huh? So they could close the borders, not import anything, and nothing would happen. So if he goes that way, well, then Mexico, with its 130 million people, will have to look elsewhere for commercial partners, for industrial partners, for trading partners.
Where would he go?
Well, obviously China, right? Obviously. Or what? Shall we go to Brazil, or what?
You could. Are there any unintended consequences, you think, of for example, the designation for the drug cartels as terrorist organizations? Could that have an impact on banking? Some analysts say it could have an impact on correspondent banking, remittances. Obviously, you own a bank. How concerned are you about sort of unintended things that could happen?
We'll have to see. It's early for me to say, but it's very simple to finger point and say, you guys in Mexico are responsible for all of this. But, I have to point out that the amount of sales for all the drug market is huge, and it happens in the United States. That's where the addicts are. And that huge amount of money is being processed through the U.S. system. And in any case, a small portion gets farmed out to the supplier countries. So if the Americans are serious about stopping the drug epidemic, they really need to work on preventing use, which is the only way out, because prohibition has never been the way. Americans invented prohibition in 1923, and they had to go back on it in 1933. Why? Because the corruption that prohibition generated was huge, and they had corrupt cops, corrupt judges, corrupt governors, and just the corruption was way worse than the effects of alcohol. So I think that what's happening now is the same thing. This drug on wars has been going on for 50, 60 years, and we've got nothing to show except more militarization, more violence, more people in jail, and more addicts. What kind of war is that? You got to fight wars that we can win.
Do you think Mexico is doing enough for security?
No. In my country, we have a big problem, which I said, rule of law and security and justice for all. Our problem is we got 80 dead people by homicide per day. this is way too much. You know, in the first 2 months of this year, we have 11,000 homicides. This is ridiculous, you know.
So what would you do if you were in power?
I would apply the Bukele model. Designate them terrorists, and anybody who's get caught being part of a gang gets 40 years in confinement. Pretty serious.
So that would be a good slogan for your campaign.
I'd have to ask Bukele if he can share that with credits with me.
You've denied political, certainly running for office in the past, but you are a very political person. You're out there, you stand up for your ideas. How do you think you can influence politics without actually running for president?
Well, I believe that people want a better future for themselves, and that if left to their own devices, they could find it. Unfortunately, the environment that we live in, not only in Mexico but in many other countries, is such that the government and the state is an obstruction to all kinds of individual actions. And I believe that we got to get rid of all those obstacles and all those obstructions and let the people free to do what they need to do, which is get on with their lives and produce value. This is not so difficult, you know. In my country, we have a large amount of the population that really believes that hard work will get them to a better place in life. That they believe that work not only is a necessary thing to produce income and be able to feed yourself and your family, but also it is something that dignifies you. When you work, you have dignity and you have self-worth. And there's lots of people like that are now being oppressed by our government and that are not being allowed to work. And I think that's wrong, and we got to be able to communicate that.
Let's switch gears for a little bit, talk about business. Obviously, Elektra just announced results today. Operating profits seem to be solid. You had approval in December to take the company private. What's the time frame for the final delisting?
I think before May, we will be out of the markets completely. It's really just more of a procedural thing, a regulatory thing, as opposed to a shareholder thing, because there are no more shareholders. The ones that wanted to get out have gotten out, and that's it. I mean, it's more of a procedural, legal thing that needs to happen. So before May.
And post-May, once you have full control and everything, can we expect any major changes to the lineup of Elektra, new companies, things that may get sold?
Not really. I think our business is solid in itself. We have the financial services business, which includes loans, deposit taking, remittances, money exchange. We have the biggest motorcycle brand. We have the pension fund management. We have the insurance management. And those things are doing really well on their own. So just get better at what we do. Get better every day.
Right. You're well known as a crypto enthusiast most of the time.
Except on days like this.
What's your exposure now on crypto? Are you still all in, or a little more cautious?
Well, all in because I have a lot of companies, right? So my source of wealth comes from my companies. We make money and they're valuable. But in my personal portfolio, the one that I manage myself and that I get to call in what asset I'm going to allocate to, I'm pretty much all in. I got about 70% in Bitcoin-related exposure and 30% in gold and gold miners exposure. So 70-30. That's it. I don't have a single bond, and I don't have any other stocks, except my own.
Right. So on Bitcoin, I mean, I think we're down about 20% since the Trump inauguration after a big rally post-election. So buy the dip or wait?
Bitcoin, you have to think 10 years and buy everything that you can. It's not going to go anywhere except up because the dynamics are such. It's the hardest asset in the world. There's only 21 million of those tokens, and 20 have been distributed and mined already. So there's going to be 1 million more from here to 2040, I think, 2140. So it's the hardest asset. Not even gold is this hard. You know, gold gets inflated at about 3% a year through additional production from mines. Bitcoin doesn't. So yeah, it will go up and down, and there will be speculative frenzies, and people will talk about it. But what most people should do is average dollar cost average, which is, you know, have a program where you can buy so much per month, and you buy every month, and that will take the uncertainty away, and never sell it.
Finally, a word about your university. It started 18 months ago or so, I believe. How's it going?
Well, you know, the university is just one part of our social action features, because we have the Fundación Azteca, and we've had the prep school for children for almost 30 years now. And from one, we now expanded it to about 12, I think. So instead of 3,000 kids, we have about, I think it's 15,000 now. So we have that, and we have the private school from nursery all the way to prep school, plus a university. And then we have the leadership program, Quibernus, and we have the Ricardo Salinas Center for diffusion of political ideas. And so we got a lot of different social action going on. But the university is sort of the icing on the cake. You know, that's the kind of thing that I should have done 20 years ago, and I didn't, but so I did it 1 year ago, and I feel much better about that. I mean, it's a long road, but I believe that the cultural battle, as we call it, has to take place in the classrooms, and certainly having a university level classroom and discussion about ideas is so important. So I'm very happy about that. It's going well. We have now about 200 alumni, and you know, it'll just grow. But I'm very happy about that.
Are you planning further expansion into other parts of the country, or is it Mexico City based for now?
I think we have to work more on this phygital idea, which is the physical university for socializing and getting the kids, you know, socialized, but extending the classrooms to remote locations. I think that will be our next project. That for people that cannot come to the to the Mexico City to live and to learn, you know, that's a big problem in our country. Yeah.
Ricardo Salinas, thank you so much. That's all we have time for today. Thanks again.
Thank you.